In the book of Genesis, it says that the sons of God came into the daughters of men. They created a hybrid offspring who are called the Nephilim, or the fallen ones.
Let's talk about giants. Not the ones from fairy tales or movies, but the kind of giants that local legends in the Solomon Islands claim have been roaming the earth for centuries. Fascinated? You should be. The legends of giants. The native stories passed down through generations describe enormous beings, monstrous, intelligent, and mysterious. Some say these giants live in underground caves, traveling between islands through hidden passageways. Good or evil? Well, that depends on who you ask. For some, the giants are protectors. For others, they're dangerous predators. There are chilling tales of these creatures hunting, killing, and yes, even eating humans. At first glance, it sounds like pure folklore. But as researchers dive deeper, these stories are starting to show glimmers of truth. Could there be more to the legends than we think? The King Solomon Connection. The history of the Solomon Islands is fascinating. According to some accounts, King Solomon of Israel sent trade ships across the world in search of treasures. His wealth is legendary, documented in the Bible and other ancient texts. Spanish explorers knew this history well. In 1568, Alvaro de Mendana sailed from Peru, hoping to find Solomon's fabled gold. When he discovered the Solomon Islands, he was convinced this was the source of Solomon's riches and named the islands in his honor.
Large human skulls and skeletons that measured between 7 and 8 feet in height, which, for ancient man, would have been rather significant.
Though Mendana's claims of finding gold were never proven, modern mining operations have uncovered significant deposits on these islands. Was he right all along? And if he was, what else might still be hidden in these lands? Descriptions of the giants. Now, let's get to the giants themselves. Witnesses describe them as towering 10 feet tall, or even bigger. They're said to have long hair, ranging from black and brown to reddish hues. Their eyes glow red, their faces are flat, and their mouths are massive. But these aren't just mindless monsters. Some say the giants are intelligent, with their own societies and social systems, using complex cave networks to move undetected. Thousands of them may still live in these remote, hidden spaces. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? Giants, living among us, in secret. But the Solomon Islands aren't the only place with such tales. Similar stories in Nevada. Travel across the world to Nevada, USA, and you'll hear about the si-te-cah giants from the Paiute people. These giants were said to be even taller, up to 12 feet, with red hair and a reputation for hostility. They preferred eating humans over animals, which understandably didn't help their reputation.
And the Bible talks about back when there was a race of giants that lived among the earth.
The Paiutes eventually banded together with other tribes to eliminate the threat. They cornered the remaining giants in a cave, now known as Lovelock Cave, and set it ablaze, suffocating them. What's remarkable is what's been found in that cave. Over the years, archaeologists have uncovered massive human skulls, 15-inch sandals, and oversized handprints. These findings continue to spark debate and curiosity. The striking similarities. What's most interesting is how similar these stories are. From the physical descriptions of the giants to their behaviors, the legends of the Solomon Islands and Nevada seem almost connected. And yet, the stories are thousands of miles apart. Could these tales point to something bigger, something global? In the Solomon Islands, these stories are part of the culture, woven into the fabric of their history. But in other parts of the world, such claims are often dismissed, denied, or buried under skepticism. Why? Why is it that whenever whispers of the extraordinary arise, they're quickly silenced or discredited? Could it be that the truth is more terrifying and more fascinating than we're prepared to believe? The story of Marius. Mango's tragic story was just one of many that Marius uncovered during his time in the Solomon Islands. The locals described the giants as intelligent but reclusive beings, inhabiting the dense forests and mountainous regions. They spoke of entire families of these creatures, some of whom possessed extraordinary physical abilities, such as incredible speed and strength. Marius was no mere outsider to these accounts. He claimed to have witnessed evidence firsthand. During one of his helicopter flights over a remote area, he spotted massive footprints embedded in the ground. footprints far too large for any human or known animal.
They naturally grew tired of being cannibalized, and they confronted these giants.
A war was started between the giants and the Paiute people.
These prints stretched across a clearing before vanishing into the thick jungle. The tribal elders of the Solomon Islands also shared stories passed down for generations. Some even showed him ancient tools and weapons allegedly belonging to the giants. These items were enormous, far beyond what any human could wield, and seemed to support the claims of their existence. The descriptions remained consistent across accounts. The giants were over 10 feet tall, with long black, brown, or reddish hair, and exuded a strong, earthy, musky scent, as if they were part of the forest itself. One account stood out among the many, that of Mango, a woman who had been abducted by giants in her youth. According to the locals, Mango lived among the giants for over 25 years before being found by her people. She was discovered in a garden on the island's northeast coast in a disturbing state, hysterical, foaming at the mouth, and visibly pregnant. Her family, who had long presumed her dead and even performed funeral rites for her, were horrified by her condition. Mango's captors were said to have made her one of their own, and the pregnancy was evidence of her time among the giants. Yet her return to human society brought no peace. Her skin was described as unnaturally slimy, making it almost impossible for the men to restrain her when they attempted to capture her. Only after using rough leaves to hold her and binding her with vines were they able to subdue her. The child Mango bore was a mutation, a half-giant boy. However, fear and superstition surrounded him. The boy only lived to the age of 5 before one of the men, terrified of what he might grow to become, killed him. Mango herself never recovered from her ordeal, eventually succumbing to her trauma without regaining her sanity. Marius documented these stories in his book, Solomon Island Mysteries, which also included accounts of UFO sightings and claims of secretive global powers, such as a one world order, that allegedly influenced his home country of Australia. What made these accounts particularly striking was the fact that they emerged before the age of the internet. During Marius's time in the Solomon Islands, the region had little to no access to global information. The natives' descriptions of the giants, tall, with reddish or brown hair, were remarkably similar to those found in other cultures around the world, from the Americas to Europe and beyond. This consistency, combined with the locals' matter-of-fact recounting of their encounters, made it difficult to dismiss their claims as mere folklore. For the people of the Solomon Islands, the giants were not myths or legends, they were a part of their history. To them, these beings were as real as the trees in their forests and the mountains that dominated their landscape. Marius's work left behind more questions than answers, but for those who believe, the evidence he presented remains compelling. More sightings? More questions? Some accounts documented by Marius detail encounters with enormous figures roaming remote parts of the Solomon Islands. It's tempting to dismiss every story as fiction. Yet, when we do that, we risk discarding every other record, ancient or otherwise, that points to the possibility of gigantic beings once walking this earth. There's no shortage of documents referencing these creatures, and one of the most notable sources happens to be a text many see as both spiritual and historical. Yet despite the temptation to lump all stories of oversized beings into the same bin as folklore, a surprising number of these accounts share a consistent core. They speak of creatures towering well beyond human norms, creatures that display alarming strength, elusive behavior, and a tendency to appear and vanish on their own terms.
This X lineage gene is related to the giants that were reported throughout the world.
In the Solomon Islands, many locals treat these stories as something akin to lived history rather than distant myths. Villages deep within the tropical interior often claim to have grown accustomed to seeing, or hearing, the mighty strides of these mysterious giants at the edges of their territory. Some elders even speak of inherited wisdom passed down through the generations, warning young people to avoid certain areas after nightfall. What makes these anecdotes compelling is the sheer detail provided. Witnesses sometimes describe footprints larger than dinner plates pressed into soft mud near riverbanks. Others mention hearing thunderous vocalizations echoing through the dense jungle, unlike any animal sound they'd encountered before. While these observations remain difficult to verify, the consistency of descriptions across different regions, spanning the globe, nudges some researchers to wonder if numerous, unconnected cultures came across similar phenomena, Goliath and beyond. The ancient text known for mentioning giants includes a detailed description of one towering warrior from the city of Gath. This individual stood at a height that surpassed normal human limits and was fully outfitted with armor of remarkable weight, heavy bronze protection from head to toe, plus a massive spear. The same text also alludes to the fact that he wasn't alone in his exceptional stature. Several giants from the same region fought in conflicts, indicating an entire group of colossal fighters. Such references raise interesting possibilities. If we assume these accounts have even a grain of historical fact, then it's logical to wonder, where did these abnormally large individuals originate? Some suggest they might have resulted from genetic anomalies or unique ancestral lineages, while others propose more fantastical explanations involving ancient deities or supernatural interbreeding.
In the beginning of time, extraterrestrials had sex with humans. And the product of this sexual contact were giants.
The term Nephilim appears in this context, denoting a group said to have existed both before and after a cataclysmic flood. Could the beings rumored to dwell in the Solomon Islands be the final remnants of that long lineage? A number of comparative mythologists point out that many ancient cultures refer to enormous warriors or demigods who once interacted or warred with humans. The notion of an entire race of giants is woven into global folklore, from remote Pacific islands to ancient Mesopotamia. Each story, taken alone, might seem exaggerated or symbolically charged. However, placed side by side, they form a tapestry of fascination that compels believers to keep asking questions. A military campaign and a surprising discovery. During a significant conflict in the Solomon Islands between mid-1942 and early 1943, foreign troops landed with the aim of seizing strategic points. Most of the forces were drawn from allied nations, intent on securing victory in a grueling confrontation. The fighting involved intense engagements on land and at sea, ending in naval battles that drastically shifted the balance of power. Some who served in that campaign claimed they encountered something beyond enemy combatants. Stories emerged about extraordinary sightings in the rugged terrain, stories of oversized footprints or glimpses of enormous silhouettes moving among the dense vegetation. Questions abound about the reliability of these first-hand tales. In wartime, stress levels run high and confusion often reigns. Could fear have magnified normal encounters, conjuring up visions of towering figures where none truly existed? Possibly. Yet the repeated insistence from multiple sources, a few of whom had no known connection to one another, adds a layer of complexity. By the end of that period, the invading force abandoned any hope of reclaiming the territory, leaving behind rumors among Allied soldiers about monstrous shapes in the jungle. Many returned home shaken, not just by warfare, but by the possibility that they had witnessed living giants. Such rumors were rarely documented in official military reports. After all, anything deemed too bizarre risked skepticism or ridicule. Nonetheless, whispered anecdotes persisted, traveling with returning veterans who confided in family and friends. The question remains, were these men and women simply dealing with the psychological impact of war, or did they really glimpse something impossible? Piecing it all together. Tales from the Solomon Islands reference beings towering over 10 feet, sporting dark or reddish hair. Legends from elsewhere describe giants with similar characteristics. Ancient manuscripts mention colossal warriors known for extraordinary power and intimidation on the battlefield. Modern-era soldiers speak of unexplainable encounters during campaigns in the Pacific. What if these threads aren't random coincidences? What if they converge on a central idea? That a race of towering beings has endured far longer than most would ever imagine. These musings lead to an unsettling possibility. Maybe the legends hold more truth than we're prepared to accept. In approaching these stories, skeptics highlight gaps in verifiable proof, skeletal remains, for instance, that would withstand scientific scrutiny. Proponents point to scattered discoveries of large bones or footprints in remote areas, claiming they've often been dismissed or hastily explained away. Add to that the pattern of cultural memory in such widely separated geographic zones, and the debate grows more intense. Whether the result of ancient genetic conditions, lost lineages, or some unknown phenomenon, the notion persists that gargantuan beings lurk just out of scientific reach.
In mythology, the giants were a fact, they did exist. What we are missing are the bones of giants.
A clash beyond expectations. It seemed like the battle on these islands took a bizarre turn. According to certain soldiers, their adversaries weren't just fellow humans. Some accounts spoke of towering figures, anywhere from 10 to 15 feet in height, who appeared impervious to weapons. Entire squads were said to have been decimated, with some individuals carried away, never to be seen again. Survivors found it difficult to sleep, haunted by the memory of those terrifying nights in the jungle. In official records, there's no mention of such gargantuan foes. Yet the fact remains, a military force known for fighting until the bitter end ultimately withdrew. Had they simply met fierce locals skilled in guerrilla tactics, or was there something else lurking among the dense foliage? The concept of battling gigantic entities hovers between the plausible and the extraordinary. Could the harsh conditions of the jungle, thick canopy, hidden ravines, extreme weather, have magnified these encounters? It's easier to miss details or misconstrue distances when the environment is both unfamiliar and punishing. Alternatively, did the wild, vast terrain provide the perfect cover for creatures truly beyond our understanding? Possible explanations. Some argue that what really happened was a confrontation with the island's inhabitants, fighters adept at blending into the terrain, perhaps employing cannibalistic customs that fueled rumors of man-eating giants. Others suspect that the real story was embellished, morphing tall individuals with fearsome reputations into full-blown legends. Another angle cites gigantism, a rare condition where excessive growth hormones lead to remarkable heights. Throughout history, there have been people who grew to staggering proportions, sometimes well over 8 feet tall, due to medical anomalies. If any such individuals existed in these remote areas, especially in times with little to no modern healthcare, word of their presence could easily spiral into tales of monstrous giants. Yet even gigantism doesn't fully account for rumors of entire communities of towering figures. It's one thing to encounter a single individual with a rare genetic trait. It's quite another to come across a whole clan that appears to exceed normal human stature by multiple feet.
Multiple gigantic skeletons, the ones in this valley being between 7 and 8 feet tall. That is incredible.
This discrepancy fuels theories about undiscovered species or subspecies, though these ideas often remain speculative without the support of concrete archaeological finds. For those invested in the possibility of real-life giants, the Solomon Islands serve as a tantalizing focal point, offering both modern anecdotes from soldiers and older stories handed down by locals. Although mainstream science demands rigorous evidence before accepting such claims, it's hard to ignore the sheer volume of lore scattered across continents and centuries. The world is vast, and much of it remains unexplored, or at least poorly documented, by contemporary standards. Are these fleeting glimpses into a hidden reality, or are we simply seeing how powerful legends can become, especially in places where oral tradition remains strong? Perhaps the allure lies in our innate desire to find marvels that defy mundane explanation. Maybe, just maybe, the idea of giants resonates because it reminds us how big, how mysterious, and how unpredictable our planet can be. When we look at old maps marked with dragons or monstrous figures, we laugh now. But who's to say that some corners of the Earth don't still harbor secrets that would astonish us all? Real-life giants. Consider Robert Wadlow, an American who nearly reached 9 feet, or Sultan Kosin, a Turkish farmer over 8 feet tall. Both represent extreme cases of human growth, yet they lived in an era of modern documentation and medical intervention. Without that support, who knows how tall they might have become, or how their existence might have sparked wild stories had they lived in an isolated region, far from hospitals and official record-keeping. Some people look at professional basketball players and are stunned by their physiques. Others see ancient references to individuals of massive stature, warriors or kings, and wonder if fact and myth sometimes blend into one. The ongoing mystery. In the end, the reports from the Solomon Islands during that tumultuous period in history remain open to interpretation. Were the so-called giants simply tall locals with a fearsome presence? Did some soldiers exaggerate their stories to explain unexpected losses? Or is it possible that pockets of truly colossal beings have endured far longer than anyone suspects? Skeptics point to the lack of verifiable physical evidence, while believers argue that artifacts and unusual accounts keep popping up worldwide, all hinting at the same phenomenon. The Solomon Islands' lush, sprawling environment still holds secrets, and the folklore of entire communities can't be dismissed out of hand. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between medical reality and age-old legend, and maybe that line is thinner than we think. A world full of tall tales. So, what happens when someone over 7 feet tall joins professional sports? A few decades, or centuries, down the line, if their massive leg bone is dug up, it might spark a new wave of giant theories. Imagination runs wild, and it's surprisingly easy to blend extraordinary reality with myth, especially since there's no shortage of con artists throughout history, eager to exploit our fascination with the bizarre. The Cardiff lesson. A prime example? The Cardiff giant. That colossal figure sparked mass hysteria before being revealed as an elaborate ruse. A block of gypsum was carefully sculpted, treated with chemicals, and buried, only to be discovered later. Word spread. People flocked to see the fossilized curiosity, convinced they'd found proof of a lost race. In reality, they'd fallen for a calculated trick. Was it all done just for money? Not entirely. In that particular instance, the mastermind behind the hoax wanted to prove how easily people could be misled, especially when it came to legends of ancient giants. He spent a fortune crafting and orchestrating the illusion, and it worked. Even prominent figures weighed in, adding to the growing chaos. Hoaxes, headlines, and Photoshop. Modern times aren't immune to deception. Old images, photoshopped bones, and outlandish articles can circulate online, misleading those hungry for proof of the extraordinary. Some of these images are produced for amusement, tabloid fodder intended purely for laughs, yet they're often shared as genuine finds. It happens quickly, and distinguishing fact from fiction becomes a daunting task. Too many mysteries? Skeptics argue that with so many hoaxes, it's impossible to accept any giant story at face value. Could there still be authentic evidence hidden beneath the rubble of fake news and forged fossils? Maybe. The world is vast, its culture's endless, and not all mysteries yield easy answers. If we dismiss everything outright, we risk losing the chance to explore phenomena that might hold a grain of truth. Scratching the surface. So, here we stand, surrounded by tales of towering figures, uncertain photographs, and centuries of speculation. Some are convinced giant humans walk the earth, while others see it as pure fantasy. Are we overlooking real discoveries in the rush to debunk every hoax? Or are these claims just another chapter in humanity's long tradition of imagining grander versions of ourselves? The questions linger, and the answers remain elusive. Only one thing feels certain. The deeper we dig into these stories, the more we realize how little we know about our planet's hidden chapters.